Roni leads the innovation team, the global head of innovation at KPMG, and very excited to talk to you today because Roni brings a wealth of experience with her. And we're going to be looking at several topics from workforce right through to ESG, right through to the innovation trends that are happening, what's happening with KPMG at the moment. And really excited because we did a previous episode with Serena from KPMG. And this one builds on that and looks at what the team is doing, how they're going forward into the future, and what they see as important. But first, I want to introduce you. Roni, it's a real pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you for making the time, and very grateful to the team for setting this up. But could you just give us, for people who might not know who you are and what's going on with KPMG, a little bit of background to yourself, who you are, what your role is, and what's led you to your role within KPMG today, please?
Sure, happy to. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Tom, for having me. It's just such a pleasure. Not a lot of people can understand how someone who leads innovation has actually been in the same workplace for 20 years, but I've been in KPMG for 20 years, did multiple things mostly around advisory and consulting. I set up the technology consulting practice in Israel, and for the past 6 months, I've been leading innovation globally. So I am stated in Israel, native born and raised here and lived here my whole life. And I think it links really well into KPMG's passion for innovation, especially around connecting people, different cultures, and our different ecosystems within KPMG and externally.
Yeah,
So
I love
that's a
it.
lot of what innovation is in KPMG.
And I was saying to you before we joined this call, I'm very excited for my first trip to Tel Aviv, which will be very exciting. And I see it over there as a real innovation hub, a real tech center that's really growing and really exciting developments and advancements. And I'd love to see from your point of view, Roni, maybe from either personal point of view of what you're doing and the work you're involved in, and perhaps from KPMG side, where do you see the big innovations happening at the moment? Where do you think, and maybe more to that, where do you think it's important that companies and teams pay attention to these innovations that are coming and the progress that we're making specifically towards emerging technologies that are being implemented?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I love it because a lot of people will automatically think about innovation as technology and think about all of the technology advancements that have been made in the past 10 years, which are unbelievable. And AI being introduced into our day-to-day lives has actually changed how we behave around retail,
Yeah.
healthcare, finance, banking, insurance. Almost every aspect of our life has been changed by AI. So people will tend to say, "Oh, innovation, that's technology, and what's technology going to have as a major next effect on our lives?"
Yeah.
And I think that actually in the past 2 years or so, mainly around the pandemic, we've seen that innovation really shows its face in so much more than simply technology. And in fact, what we're seeing now is that most of the technology trends are actually are based on technologies that used to already exist, but are meeting additional types of waves of change that we're seeing around in the environment,
Yeah.
society, people. It's just if we're looking only at tech trends, we'll miss a lot of what's happening around future of workforce or what next solutions are going to happen around technology, because those are going to be mainly based around ESG, environment, social, and governance, and a lot around us as individuals with the ability and freedom to choose to do not just what makes us happy and fulfilled, but also what to really engage with activities that we can relate to,
Yeah.
that meet our values. So that's going to be a very significant part of where people are going to drive all of that, all of their own personal innovation.
Yeah.
So keep an eye on environmental, societal changes. Those are really going to drive a lot of the innovation for the next 10 years.
Yeah. I think that's such a good point as well, because it's a theme that keeps coming up. And when I notice it as well is how people jump to the technology, but they don't jump to actually what's needed to learn around these topics and what might not be considered, and other topics, like you said, and something I want to jump to, which is ESG, and how this can really help people, how people will need to give further consideration, because you're not going to be able to use the technology if your team and your people aren't educated on how it can best be used. It's otherwise you're going out, you're buying a fancy new toy, and you don't actually know how it's going to be implemented, or as we're saying, the word innovation, how it can innovate your business and how it can actually bring results, and why it's so important. So before we look at the topic that I want to, which is looking at ESG and how that goes, what's going on in the innovation space at the moment with regards to workforce and technology in the workforce? What do you see happening?
Well, let me just say, when we talk about innovation, it is so interconnected with other themes. So when we're talking about people and the workforce, the workspace, that's one aspect of it. A lot of that also has to do with our clients, the market, and where the markets are going, but also the future of professional services and what is the future of KPMG in that aspect. So we actually do see this in a holistic way. They're all interconnected. When we look at one of the biggest challenges, and I think the areas of growth for us, is really understanding the workplace, what that's going to look like. And our biggest asset by far is our people. So how do we continue to make them so content with what they do, so happy and engaged, and again, very much in correlation with our values, and feeling that that is the best place for them to work. So what's happening around innovation in the workplace? I think one of the biggest things that we're going to touch on this year is our ecosystems and collaboration. This is probably, and I'm very passionate about this myself. I think innovation truly comes from bringing different types of ideas together and thinking about how to kind of build an impactful outcome out of that. We've actually just launched our first global innovation platform in KPMG, and that's going to allow us not just to engage with our own people around challenges, and these are not specifically technological challenges. Our first challenge, by the way, is called ESG Next, and that is how we could help our clients innovate for better around ESG. So it's any kind of idea, and doesn't have to touch on technology at all. So this platform, KPMG Illuminate, is going to allow us to have all of our people bring their voices into one place and actually make themselves be heard. But they can also collaborate in teams that could be multidisciplinary, multi-geographical, et cetera, et cetera. So as inclusive as possible, cross-border, basically everything that's possible. We're really excited about that. We just launched that last week, and really excited to see what comes out of that. Next thing that's going to come out is, of course, how are we going to use that platform to create additional ecosystems, additional networks for people to interact, not just around a specific challenge that we bring. And we are going to launch our trend radar and allow for our KPMG people to kind of engage around themes that they are excited about and create their own networks within KPMG around that. And lastly, one of our biggest assets around innovation is really how we connect to our external ecosystems as well, our clients, our alliance partners, academic partners, and so on. And so that's going to enable us to interact with those as well.
Amazing. And I love what you're saying. I'm sold on the whole idea of KPMG Illuminate, and I love it. I think it's a brilliant way, because a key thing for us, Roni, is looking at collaboration. And I mean, we put our money where our mouth is, and we really say AI Journal is open source, because we truly believe, as you're getting to and as KPMG is getting to, which is really wonderful to hear, that it does spark those new ideas, right? And it does spark those new avenues and paves those new ways, as you said, to collaboration and to get new ideas. And especially when you look at things such as the environmental, the social, and the governmental kind of fields, that AI and what you're going into, it's such a key part. So I'd love to know how, with collaboration, and maybe from your personal point of view, Roni, you've touched on it there. Why is it so important for teams and people to get involved in initiatives such as KPMG Illuminate to be able to foster new innovations and to get new ideas? Because we're in a big, and I'm not too bothered who asked me, I just say we're in a very big unknown. Whether you're one of the senior directors or you're someone coming in, there's still a lot we don't know around these new technologies. And your point is perfect. So how do we get there through different collaboration?
Well, first of all, that's just so true. There is a huge unknown, and there's an unknown number of unknowns. So we're in the zone of what I call the unknown unknown, right? It's not like we can even map it. And going back to, it's not really just innovation. I mean, we call it innovation, but mostly what we see, it is around touching passion and what people care about. That is
Yeah,
the biggest point. I mean, it's not talking to our senior partners, our managing directors. It's really enabling anyone in the firm
yeah,
who's passionate about ESG. And that is such a wide theme. It's about our environment, it's about governance in organizations and in other structures, governments, municipalities, etc., and around society. So such a wide theme. I've not spoken, in the past year to anyone who wasn't passionate about at least one aspect of that. So it's
yeah,
allowing everyone to kind of bring themselves forward and not have to be shy about it. We really are. It's not just looking for the ideas. We really want to hear what people's thoughts and ambitions and passions are around, to allow them to engage with other people who have the same passions.
yeah,
And then, frankly, I think we have the best and brightest minds within KPMG. We really don't have to look too far. So all we need to do is just kind of open our eyes, open our ears, and be open to those ideas. And as they start kind of bubbling up, I'm sure we'll really find amazing value, not just for our clients and markets, but for KPMG, for our own environment, for our people, to be a better firm as well.
yeah. I love that as well because it's acknowledging we still need to be better, and I think that's what the best companies do. They really understand of what can we learn, how can we train ourselves, how can we get people on board with this mission. I think that's so critical because when we see it from a journal kind of point of view and reporting point of view, you can see companies get caught up in their own thinking and not actually thinking how can we get the most out of our team and what are people doing, which leads me to my next question, Ronnie, and you've touched on it briefly. But across KPMG is a huge multinational company that's involved in various different arms and different projects. What are you doing in your role, Ronnie, and what are the team doing that you're with to make sure that people, as you said, feel comfortable and confident that they should do to really embrace new changes that are happening? What's going on there?
Well, there's so much going on, but let me give you a taste of maybe two or three initiatives that should do exactly that. One of the most important things that we see our responsibility as global innovation is to be as bold and forward thinking as possible. And the reason is because once we put that voice out there, our people feel so much more comfortable making their own voice be heard and also acting upon some of that. So, a lot of our voice on innovation is around publications that are looking at the future, and there's quite a few coming out this year. Our flagship publication, if you will, will be a few waves of publications that are going to be around shaping 2040. So we brought in the Next Gen Council for KPMG and some future leaders from the University of Leeds. We brought them together, and these amazing young leaders of the future sat together and thought about what is the future going to look like in 2040. So that's pretty far away, right? It's like almost 20 years away. Um, but also thinking from the concept of shaping 2040. So, not so much what do you predict is going to happen, but also having the chance as a future leader, how would you like to shape 2040? And that has been an amazing exercise. We looked at it from different angles, surround regulation and political themes. We looked at technology, obviously,
Yeah,
society. And basically, what we wanted to see is what that reality is going to look like in multiple different aspects. So we have 20 little bites of predictions and understanding of the future as our future leaders see them. And we're very excited about those because they're very forward thinking and they're not predictions. It's an option of what reality could look like,
yeah,
but really taking it to the far extent of this is how we can shape the future. And that whole exercise has been so eye-opening for not just for our people, but for us as innovation leaders as well, just understanding how much not only responsibility but how we have, but accountability and ability to actually change the future. So that's been kind of amazing. First set of publications are planned for around March. So that's one very exciting thing.
Amazing.
There's another set of publications called 30 Voices, which is looking at 2030 and
Yep.
really bringing our external voices, our clients, leading clients from different sectors, to talk about what they see 2030 going to look like. And those are publications that are sector based. So the next one that's coming up is going to be around digital government.
Wow.
Very, very exciting because we actually brought leaders from multiple governments, but also government owned companies,
Yep.
startups that are working together with the governments, and basically any type of player in that ecosystem, thinking about asking them, could you actually place yourself in 2030 and tell us what it looks like
Yeah.
from that standpoint. Again, great exercise. We are building some predictions and our view on 2030 from that and from our own leaders. And we have a few publications like that expected to go out this year. And also, if I can, I'll
Yeah.
just love to tell you a little bit about my own podcast, which is called Back from 2040, which
Very
I'm
cool.
extremely excited about because I'm just having so much fun doing it. I'm talking to futurists, leaders, tech savvy, inspirationists, and really talking to them about their journey to 2040. So they basically have to send themselves in a rocket ship to 2040 and come back. That's why it's called Back from 2040. And we talk about what they saw, what it looked like, how that materialized. It's fun conversation, extremely inspirational. The ones that we've had already touch on areas from our extended humanity to nanotechnology in agriculture to the future of workspace. So super, super exciting.
It's amazing, Roni. And I just want to say, where do I sign up? Where can I start my application?
Well, any place you hear your podcast, just look for Back from 2040.
Yeah,
We
I'm
have
looking
the first
forward to it.
episode that came out last month, and the next one's coming up really soon.
It's amazing. And I think it's awesome to hear what you're doing as well. And with KPMG, because we look at it as well. So some of these strategies I'll definitely be taking, Ronnie, because thank you. You definitely helped me and you're unlocking a lot of ideas in my head. But I always look at it as thinking if I can improve 1% every day, and if you've got that long-term vision, it's the classic thinking, people underestimate what they can do in 10 years, but they overestimate what they can do in a year. And it's so easy. If you do have that 2030, 2040 vision and you're improving 1% every day, you're going to be a pretty top level of thinking how you're going to be getting to these new ideas. So I'd love to know, and if you can, where did this idea come from for 2040 and 2030? Because I love it. It's a great way of thinking. It's a great mindset for the team, for a business, for an individual. Where, do you know where it came up from? Did someone just think, right, what
Yeah, well, first of all, and this is something personal about myself. I love to be inspired by everything around me. Some people call it stealing ideas. I just say I'm inspired. But so no, but frankly, I do search for inspiration everywhere. So first of all, our Australian firm started with the 30 Voices. Well, actually, the UK firm and the Australian firm started with the 30 Voices theme. So we kind of picked on it and made it global. The looking at 2040 and shaping 2040, that one really came out of just wanting to do something that is much, much more forward thinking and really looking at the future, because we felt that the past 2 years have just shown us one thing, is that we cannot predict the pace of change. We're just saying that it gets faster, but frankly, we cannot even predict how fast it will go. And it's enough to look at, I mean, usually we would look at technology trends and we'd map them horizon 1, 2, and 3. And then the metaverse came in, that was in horizon 3, and it moved into horizon 2, and it moved into horizon 1. Like, all that happened in 6 months. That has almost never happened. So that's a big wow. It is a technology trend. It's going to be pushed through a lot of societal and grand changes to the way that we act as human beings. It's going to bring so many other things around our extended identities, our extended way of living, right? That is a huge thing. And thinking about that, frankly, just think how far that could go. So putting a pin on 2030 just didn't feel enough. It was like, okay, let's just think, how far could this go? And when we did that, we unleashed so much innovation, inspiration, and ideas. And, I have to say something. I've done half a dozen of those already, of those kind of back from 2040 discussions.
Yeah.
And each one of them, when I finished that interview, it's so overwhelming because we realize technology is already here. It's about how we adopt it. What did we decide to do with it? Some of it, might sometimes kind of make us feel, well, that's a little bit creepy. Is it going to really look like that? But I think if people would have looked at us 20 years ago, stuck in our phones, living in apps and in the virtual world, we would have thought that's creepy. Now we're just looking at how enhanced that is. And a lot of that is around how are we going to embrace that by not saying this is replacing our life, but actually extending it. And that is one of the major themes that we're going to touch on in KPMG, extending our value, extending our insights, extending our existence. So really embracing that because that's already here, as I mentioned.
That's so cool because I look at it exactly the same way. Like I was looking at, if you look at a mobile phone, like it's a digital extension of ourselves, and that's what I see it as. Basically, I see it as if anyone can get hold of someone's phone, it's why we're so secure about it, because it's us. It's got everything that I want in it, and I see it directly as you were saying. People were asking me, Tom, when do you reckon the metaverse is going to be implemented? And I was like, well, maybe it's 5 years away. But the shift has happened now. Like the shift is happening, and it's going to be 5 years soon passes, exactly as why you're and KPMG are looking at 2030, 2040. 2040 will be here, and we'll be chatting, do our next interview, Roni. Hopefully we'll do many more of these through a VR kind of, I could see it already, a digital self.
For sure. We're already exploring the metaverse. We're already there. So I don't think it's going to be 5 years. And I think that for the next experience of our people, not just our clients and markets, it's a lot of that is going to be, let's just put it under that phrase, extended.
Yeah, extended digital version. I love it. So to find out more and to get more, and we can put these links in the show notes as well, where can people find out more, Ronnie, about what you're doing, a bit more detail, find out more about yourself, and to have any questions that they have, where can people go?
Well, the podcast is called Back from 2040. You can find out that wherever you're consuming your podcasts. In terms of our global innovations website, the external website, unfortunately, is still not launched. That's going to happen very, very soon. But if you follow me on LinkedIn, it's Roni Michael, then you can actually just get all of the news and updates through that. That's probably the easiest way.
Awesome. And we'll put that in the show notes for people to engage with, come and speak to you about, and get involved with all these awesome initiatives, this one and the past one we spoke about. So it's been really insightful and really useful as well. I feel like I could talk to you forever, Roni, with everything we're on the same page around innovation, because I can get caught off on a wind and off a tangent. So we'll definitely have to do this again and look at.
Well, we can make a date for 2040, but let's try to maybe schedule something a little bit sooner.
Something a bit sooner would be nice. I'd like to see what's happening in the next few months with KPMG and yourself, Roni. But no, honestly, really appreciate you spending the time with us today and taking the time out, and grateful for everything you shared with me and the audience. And thank you for joining us, Roni. It's been really useful.
It was a great, great pleasure. Thank you.